So moving from mass mobilizations to strategic organization and organization building, and to allow for it to be a much longer fight, right? And a larger fight beyond this bill, a larger fight against neocolonialism, a larger fight that allows Kenya to no longer be a dependent state, a fight towards revolutionary Pan-Africanism, where they can join forces with places like the Alliance of Sahelian States and other struggles on the continent that are moving towards having Africa be owned by Africans for the interests of Africans.
When we look at the current political happenings in our country, is to praise the Gen Z and, of course, some of us that have been in street for a long time. In fact, we are the happiest people at the moment, that at the very first time, the Kenyan people are taking their future in their own hands, and kudos to Gen Z. And then the second thing I wanted to say is that people look at how President William Samoei Ruto, and now joined by Raila, has reacted to this national crisis. But I think these are very cunning politicians. They are very deceptive, and they disrespect Kenyan people. In fact, Raila is like a scavenger, a vulture, eating on top of the poor, dead bodies of the Kenyan people. And he's very shameless about it, because he has done it so many times that now he's soulless. Yeah. So the old man is walking around stepping on dead people. And he sees it as, his only card to make it to the AU. After all, African Union is a captured institution by the imperialist interest. In fact, the United States, Japan, and other imperialist countries push more funding to the African Union, which is basically a club to defend corrupt presidents in Africa. This is...
For the time being, the United States has lost that battle. The United States military has officially all been expelled from Niger. So they are no longer in the air base that he's referring to. It's really important, obviously, that we defend Niger in this moment. I think we need to be super realistic. What Niger has done is incredibly bold. Like, you don't kick out the United States military and not face any consequence. That doesn't happen, right? It's not like the United States is like, okay, you've given us the boot, respect that. There's no reality in which, this isn't something where the United States is going to retaliate in some way or another. So I really, really want people, like, if they take nothing else away from this entire stream, to understand that, like, this is the time to organize, to defend the Alliance of Sahel states. All three countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. If you're watching this from Kenya, if you're watching this from Zimbabwe, if you are, watching this and you're an African living in Japan, like, you have to understand, like, this is a window of opportunity we've had for liberation that we haven't had for decades. And if we lose this, like, we're going to be set back so far as a people. And so wherever you are, like, this is the time to really defend the Alliance of Sahel states.
Hello, and good afternoon to those of you here in the U.S., and I know folks are all over the world. Thank you so much for joining our kickoff webinar for the Black Alliance for Peace Month of Action Against AFRICOM. We're going to start out with our interpretation team giving instructions so that folks can hear in other languages. So take it away, interpreters.
Bonjour tout le monde. Dans l'idée pour respecter l'engagement Black Alliance for Peace pour langage linguistique gen justice li, jodi a nous allons faire réunion ça en créole, en anglais et puis en français avec interprétation Zoom nan qui déjà activée. Et pour activer interprétation Zoom nan, tant pis cliquez sous ballon, sous globe qui dit interprétation qui est en bas à droite écran là et puis choisir langue où vous voulez participer à. Si vous êtes connecté sous Zoom avec téléphone portable, tant pis tapez 3 petits points yo dans coin en bas à droite écran, côté li dit more plus et puis choisis interprétation langue. Choisis French, français, créole et puis après ça, moyen done terminé en haut à droite écran.
Bonjour. Afin de respecter l'engagement de la BAP en termes de justice linguistique, la réunion d'aujourd'hui se déroulera en français, en créole haïtien et en anglais, utilisant la fonction d'interprétation qui a déjà été activée. Si vous utilisez un ordinateur, vous verrez une icône représentant un globe terrestre au bas de votre écran. Si vous êtes sur une tablette ou un téléphone, cliquez sur plus et vous verrez un menu qui comprend une option intitulée « Interprétation de la langue ». Pour écouter l'interprétation, cliquez sur l'icône du globe ou sur « Interprétation de la langue ». Ensuite, choisissez votre canal de langue. Si vous utilisez un téléphone ou une tablette, cliquez sur « Terminer ». Si vous ne pouvez pas entendre l'interprète sur votre canal, demandez de l'aide dans le chat ou levez la main.
Thank you all.
One moment. This will be also done in English. Sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. In order to respect the BAP commitment in terms of justice for language, the meeting today will be in French, Haitian Creole, and English, using the Zoom interpretation functionality, which has already been activated. To activate the Zoom interpretation, please click on the interpretation globe in the lower right side of your screen and choose the language in which you would like to listen. If you're connecting to Zoom through your phone, please touch the 3 dots at the bottom right corner where it says More, tap Language Interpretation, choose the language in which you would like to listen, and then touch Done on the top right corner. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. Thank you all so much. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. I'm Margaret Kimberly. I'm co-coordinator of the Black Alliance for Peace Africa team with Netfa Freeman. Every October, we mark the International Month of Action Against AFRICOM. And the title of this webinar is also the theme for this year, Resisting Fascism and Neocolonialism, U.S. out of Africa, Shut Down AFRICOM. And every year, organizations around this country, the U.S. and the world, endorse and participate in the month of action, standing united against the U.S. military presence in African nations, across the continent and the diaspora. Black Alliance for Peace, in case you don't know, is an alliance that seeks to recapture and redevelop the historic anti-war, anti-imperialist, and pro-peace positions of the radical Black movement. Through educational activities such as this, organizing and movement support, organizations and individuals in the alliance work to oppose both the militarized domestic state repression and policies of destabilization, subversion and the permanent war agenda of the US state globally. And I realize I'm talking too fast. I want to remind everyone, when we have interpretation, you've got to slow it down. So I'm going to slow down a bit. And I also want to mention the US Out of Africa Network, our Shutdown Africa campaign. AFRICOM began in October of 2008. That is why we chose this month. And our USOAN team works with Black Alliance for Peace in demanding the right to sovereign and self-determination for African people. And if you want to, if you have questions, there's a Q&A box. Please use the Q&A box and not the chat. And now I will turn it over to our great moderator, Layla A. from Black Alliance for Peace. She's quite an organizer and activist with descent from the Horn of Africa, a great grassroots organizer. So Layla, join us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us. Hopefully, as we all know, so October 1st marked the start of the 4th International Month of Action against AFRICOM. AFRICOM being, of course, the U.S. Africa Command. This is organized by the Black Alliance for Peace, BAP. The title of this webinar is the name of the event, like Margaret told us. So we're joined today by 4 amazing speakers and organizers in their own right from across the diaspora. We have people on the continent, both in the West and the East, as well as here in the belly of the beast in the US. Our first speaker today, I'm so glad they were able to join, is calling in from Kenya. And had some internet issues earlier, so please be patient with us if that shows itself today. We are going to be joined now by Booker Omole, National Vice Chairperson and National Organizing Secretary of the Communist Party of Kenya, who has been on the ground with everything going on the past couple months. So we are so blessed to be able to hear from them live and direct. And they will be talking with us for about 15 minutes, and then we will introduce the next speakers. So the floor is yours, Booker.
First, thank you. Thank you very much, Black Alliance for Peace, for organizing this webinar. And like you have rightfully said, I'm only going to be able to join via the audio because we don't have electricity here. And I hope that my contribution to this webinar will be advance our anti-imperialist struggle. So I'll start with a brief introduction. Just for the moderator, how much time do I have?
You have about 15 minutes.
Okay. I represent the Communist Party of Kenya, where I serve as the National Vice Chairperson and the National Organizing Secretary. Now, one of the key tenets of the Communist Party of Kenya is the spirit of internationalism. Internationalism and solidarity, it's at the core of our organizing in building one of the highest detachments of the Party of the Working Class. And that's how we came to know about the Black Alliance for Peace and all the anti-imperialist forces to redefine our international struggle. Even though at this very moment, we say that our national struggle is primacy, but we must not shy away to recognize the interrelationship or the dialectical relationship between our national struggle and international struggle. Now, on the key topic, remember Kenya, it's on the Horn of Africa. We call it it's the belly of the beast in the Horn of Africa. This is our country, Kenya. This is where you get all this, the United States CIA seems to be headquartered here in Nairobi, Mossad, and even the British intelligence system. They are all here in Nairobi. But when we talk about AFRICOM, or the military presence that is based in Africa, Kenya has a history with military bases to support the neocolonial system that threatens not just our very sovereignty, but also threatens our right to self-determination. Just immediately after independence, and as we interpret it, that our independence was hijacked by a few reactionary nationalists led by our so-called founding father, Jomo Kenyatta. So we really did not have a complete independence, but we had a neocolonial system where our British, the former colonizer, negotiated their way into making sure that we will permanently have the British army stationed in our soil in an independent Kenya. And probably most of us have heard about the excesses of Batuk, the British unit that is based on the central part of our country in Nanyuki. Now, in the very recent days, particularly the last recent 3 months, when the United States imperialism was, and with their Western allies, that is particularly France for a fact, were facing crisis in East Africa, not in West Africa. The French forces, the United States forces, after the pro-people popular coup that happened in the Sahel region, the United States Army do not have a home in West Africa, either in Mali, in Burkina Faso. So this has accelerated the footprints of the United States military outposts in East Africa, particularly in Kenya. It's important to say that when President William Samoei Ruto traveled to White House last time, one of the key decisions that President Joe Biden actually mentioned was that Kenya is going to be a non-NATO ally. It basically means that Kenya is going to realign itself into the interest of the United States imperialism. We will not be an independent country that can be able to make its decision based on the interest of the Kenyan people, but we are going to turn our policies outward and only serve the United States imperialism interest. Now, this non-NATO ally was not just a bubble issue. In fact, after that, we have seen acceleration of construction of the United States air base and military bases in our country. One of the biggest air bases that have been constructed in our country in the last less than 2 years is in Wajir, which is part of the northern Kenya. Now that brings an additional of a third, United States military base after they managed to force our government to hand over an entire archipelago in Mada Islands that is just facing Somalia for the United States to use as their military outpost in East Africa. Now, these events that are happening only confirms that Kenya is not just a client state of the United States imperialism. It also confirms that Kenya is a neocolonial entity that doesn't look at the internal interest of their people, but only advances policies that are that are outward driven. And I will give a few policies. In fact, we used to say that the President William Samoei Ruto is indeed could be an agent of imperialism. Yes, okay, let me slow down a bit. We used to say that President William Samoei Ruto is indeed a puppet of United States imperialism, but now it's not just something that we say. We can confirm that indeed President William Samoei Ruto is an agent of the United States imperialism because of the policies that he has rolled out, not just anti-people policy in terms of the national policy, but also anti-people policy in response to foreign policy. So we could start with a few examples in terms of foreign policy, because of foreign policy, this current administration has no foreign policy, just like the United States of America. The US government does not have a foreign policy. They only have interest to serve the dominance class in the United States and not to advance, a relationship that is based not just on solidarity, but mutual respect of each country. Indeed, the first and the most annoying policy that we are still fighting to date is putting Black faces to defend the interest of imperialism in Haiti. Remember, our local courts here, the Communist Party of Kenya, together with other organizations, took President William Samoei Ruto to court because the act of deployment of the Kenya police to serve the interests of the United States imperialism in Haiti is not just illegal, but has been misrepresented as a Pan-Africanist action where the African brothers are in solidarity with the Haitian people. But the truth of the matter is that the United States imperialism is camouflaging under the Black, African, particularly Black Kenyan population to advance their interests. No wonder when the Kenyan police arrived in Haiti, they were deployed, the first June, they were deployed to guard the United States Embassy in Haiti on our annoyance. So this act of putting boots on ground in Haiti with a view not to liberate the Haitian people, but to institutionalize and support the members of the core group that have been consistently against the Haitian people only advances the imperialist interest. And there is nothing, not even an iota of Pan-Africanism in this kind of policy of the national government in Kenya. The other policy is, this regime is signing what they're calling labor contracts with imperialist countries. We have seen President William Samoei Ruto has signed labor contracts with Canada, with Germany, and other European countries. And he is proud that he is taking some of the Kenyans to work abroad. But the most unfortunate thing, that the people leaving the country to go and work abroad are the people that we so need to build the national economy in Kenya. For example, we don't have enough doctors. Now doctors are going abroad. We don't have nurses. We don't have engineers. So this is brain drain. There is no Pan-Africanist policy that can compromise the building of the national industries and the local productive forces while prioritize to export labor where we are going vertical, but when we are coming horizontal, because it basically means that we go as passengers abroad and come back here as cargoes. Basically, even in the Middle East, where some of the jobs are even extremely hostile and undignified job under very harsh conditions. Remember, during the preparation for the World Cup, last World Cup, many Kenyans died in the Emirates. Many Kenyans died in Qatar, working in construction sector at very extreme conditions. So those are just some of the international foreign policies that this administration continues to advance, that are not just they are in support of the primary enemy, or that continues to threaten the very life of this continent, which is the United States imperialism, the hegemony of the dominant class in the United States. Now, if it comes to domestic policy, then remember President William Samoei Ruto rolled out what they're calling a free enterprising fund, which was called a hustler fund, basically telling young people that you can borrow as low as, you can borrow as low as $2 or $3 to employ yourself, so you do not need to look for employment in your government. This is unfortunate, because there is no way any responsible government can try to experiment a neoliberal experiment like, free enterprising, where you expect the people who do not have jobs to roll out businesses by borrowing as low as $5. So the policy of neoliberalism is an important thread, to the national project, which is Kenya. So essentially, in my conclusion, I want to say that the Communist Party of Kenya takes this clear and the correct position that the AFRICOM needs to be defeated. It will not leave Africa. And the United States military bases in the African continent will continue to expand to threaten our sovereignty, to threaten our struggle for self-determination, and to make sure that if they cannot win through soft power, through propaganda, through spreading believable lies, then they will activate the lethal power, the military power, to further their agenda, like the former president Barack Obama used the United States military and the French military to kill a sitting president, which was Muammar Gaddafi. So we should all get united to advance our anti-imperialist agenda and to demand that the military bases, the imperialist military bases in the African continent, must be closed now, and we must continue to advance an alternative military arrangement that is not just anti-imperialist, but to also defend, the people of the African continent wherever they found themselves. Thank you very much, comrades.
Wow. Thank you, Booker. You dropped a lot of gems. I hope people were able to catch that. If people were able to do two things at once, we do have our BAP comrades in the chat that are actually sharing links that are associated with what the speakers are talking about. So Yolian posted in the chat a link to the BAP statement that talked about Kenyan police being deployed to Haiti. And there are other links that people are updating as well. So keep an eye out there. It was just reshared while the speakers are going. Also, note to the speakers, do be cautious of the rate of your speech to give our interpreters time to interpret for the audience as well. So again, thank you, Booker. Sorry, I'm also reading a note here in the chat. Margaret is sharing that Booker Omole has been personally, he didn't speak to this, but has been personally attacked by the Kenyan puppet government, and has still been super generous to being able to provide his time and resources to the rest of us throughout the diaspora to be able to share that experience. So again, thank you so much. And thank you just for your continued commitment to the movement. Our next speaker is Salome Ayuak, a dear comrade. Salome is an educator, researcher, and organizer, currently serving as the Information Secretary of the South Sudanese Acholi of North America Association and a member of the Black Alliance for Peace Atlanta chapter. Welcome, Salome.
Thank you. Thank you, Layla. I'm honored to be part of this panel of Africans that are working to advance our ancestors' unfinished struggles for liberation. And I want to thank the audience for being here today as well. And so today, I'm going to focus on how my people, the people of the Sudans, have a long history of resisting fascism, neocolonialism, and US militarism. This resistance began well before the colonial period and continues to shape the region's political landscape. I joined this movement. Something that is really important to me is, or somebody that's really important to me in the history of Sudanese revolt is John Garange. And something that he said is, I've resolved to make the ultimate sacrifice. And this is him talking about joining the SPLMA. And that sacrifices his life, for I am bound by nothing but duty and commitment to Africa and African people. And that's how I'm trying to move, and that's how I see all those that struggle for African liberation. So the crisis in the Sudans, like the struggles in Haiti, in Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia, these are not humanitarian crises, right? These are a crisis of imperialism in the form of neocolonialism. And for clarity, neocolonialism, as defined and articulated by Kwame Nkrumah in The Highest Stage of Imperialism, is the essence of neocolonialism is that the state subject to it is, in theory, independent and has all the outward trappings of international sovereignty, but in reality, its economic system and thus its political policy is directed from outside. And so that's the state of the Sudans right now, the states of Kenya right now. This is our current reality, right? And so if we understand this, if we understand our struggle must be against neocolonialism as opposed to humanitarianism, then our tactics, our strategies then have to shift, right? So can you go to slide?
Pause. Sorry, could you just slow down your speech real quick?
Yes, I will. I tend to talk fast and we need the interpretation, so I'm going to slow down. So this is a good slide to be on. Can you go back to the slide with the periods, please? So a way that I think it's helpful to think about the Sudans, and especially considering a class analysis to understanding the Sudans, is thinking about Samir Amin's dependency theory. And so within his dependency theory, he breaks it down into 4 periods, which are the pre-mercantilist period, which in the Sudans would be the Kush to 1600. And this is before European invasion. And something similar that Samir Amin and Walter Rodney both say is that, like, within this period, Africa is no less or worse off than the rest of the world in terms of development. And then when you move into the mercantilist period, there's the rise of Atlantic mercantilism. And then this is a turning point when it comes to European powers exploiting the Sudans. And this really devastating especially Western Africa, right, with the slave trade, and devastated local economies as well. And so this extraction of labor and resources is shifted our countries from having self-sufficiency to dependencies, or our regions, because at this point they're not yet countries as we know them today. And in parts of Eastern Africa, like for example in the Sudans, where you have more Ottoman Egyptian rule, they weren't as impacted by this, but they still felt some of it. And so next slide, please. So an important moment in Sudanese history, and the reason why I'm starting with the history of the Sudans is this is all to help us understand what's taking place now. We can't understand what's taking place now by starting at 2018. We have to start from these periods, because it helps us, like, it lays the groundwork for understanding what's taking place now. If we start at 2018, we're not going to understand what's taking place in 2024. And so I'll slow down again. The Mahdist revolt emerged in the late 19th century as a grassroots anti-imperialist struggle against the Ottoman Egyptian rule. And it was fueled by widespread discontent amongst exploited groups. This included village communities, slave peasants, craftspeople, and these communities, they faced heavy taxation, right? They faced cultural erosion and social inequality under colonial exploitation. And this sparked revolt, which aimed at reviving indigenous Sunnis Islam traditions, such as Sufism, and resisting the foreign domination of the Ottoman Egyptian rule. So under the charismatic leader, they were able to actually win, right? They were able to defeat, and that led to the Mahdist state. But then quickly, due to the amount of devastation that came following the revolt, like such as famine, war, and disease reducing the population, the Mahdist state was easily able to be recaptured by the elites, right? And this is also influenced by the death of the charismatic leader who led it. And this paved the way for more formal colonial rule by the Anglo-Egyptian rule, right? So next slide. So here we have the period shown again, and within the full capitalist period, you have Sudan being like more fully integrated into the global capitalist system after the fall of the Mahdist state. And so as you see the Industrial Revolution in Europe and North America exploiting, you see the exploitation and the underdevelopment of Africa as the development of Europe and North America is there. And so a lot of local economies became reorganized to serve foreign markets as opposed to their own interest, which led to economic dependency. Next slide, please. And what actually allowed for the Anglo-Egyptian rule to come to place was the Battle of Omdurman. If you understand the Battle of Omdurman, you can understand how the rest of colonialism took place on the continent, right? And so while the Mahdist state was able to defeat their rulers, with the Battle of Omdurman, there came the Maxim gun, which is an automated weapon that's developed from gum arabic, a key Sudanese export. And with this advanced weaponry, advanced military technology of the machine gun, which they created by using a Sudanese export, the gum arabic, they were able to destroy the people, right? And the British actually have these portraits of the Battle of Omdurman all over. And so following the Battle of Omdurman, they established the condominium. And a crucial turning point occurred actually. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this slide we actually made as part of a class that I co-taught with my comrade Mahi. And we found it important to put all of these elements here of the history of the Sudans from the fall of the Mahdist state to the referendum. And as you can see here, you have so many uprisings of folks that are easily then recaptured, like the 1924 uprising when the Sudanese protested for self-determination from British colonization, and the White Flag League, which led these protests. And then this was like one of the first popular anti-colonial movements that happened since the Mahdist revolts. And in order to quell this type of rebellion, to repress Africans, they created the Sudan Defense Force in 1925 as a response to this. So you see how the military grade and technology and strategies shift as people rise against it. And through colonial rule, they implemented a lot of, they implemented native administration, which solidified the idea of the tribe, which used to be more flexible, like in the pre-mercantilist period, but now it's stuck, right? It's stuck, and you're stuck with these categories, and then you create animosities with your neighboring peoples, right? And so this idea of, hey, I'm this particular group, and tribe again is a colonial idea, right? It's in order to advance the colonial administration. It's supposed to advance their powers. And then you also have the Southern policy, which separated folks from the South and from the North, where you couldn't, as a Southerner, you couldn't go to the North. And you have the Gazira scheme, which basically made it so that agriculture was focused on export crops like cotton, as opposed to crops that were needed for people, which destroyed the soil. But moving on, a lot of these setups, if you move on to the next slide. So if you look here, I know Omole was talking about the Kenya being of labor, right? So in this, all of the ones in red, this is like the colonial setup of these countries, is to be the Africa of the labor reserves. And then Sudan is within the green area, which is set up to be the Africa of the export reserves, right? And so they're still playing the same roles. And then the ones in purple are Africa of the mining reserves, right? So these setups are still playing the same roles today. Next slide. And then, so I find this graphic important because it shows the process, right? We have 1956 independent, and then we have a regime followed by uprising, followed by a transition, followed by another regime, followed by uprising. And so it continues, and that's what we're seeing today, right? Next slide. And so from here, next slide. So the political process that we saw the removal of Omar Bashir due to people coming up, rising together. But we saw that quickly get recaptured, similar to how we saw it with the Mahdi's revolt, where all sorts of people from all sorts of class backgrounds rose up for their self-interest and for the interest to reclaim their country, right? And then now you're at a point where it's been recaptured by these military forces that have been in place and have been solidified for the past couple decades, right? Like the making of the RSF is not new. And my time is almost up. And so this is more of a brief history, right, around understanding the Sudans. And part of why I focused more on the history of it as opposed to the current moment is because we could see how this is a pattern. So if you click the next slide, we see how this is a pattern, right? When Sudanese people rise up, it's all of Sudanese peoples, whether it's from the south, from Khartoum areas, etc. It's usually the Sudanese people against repressive governments that are working that not in the interest of African peoples, but within their own interest, backed by for example, when it comes to the separation of South Sudan from Sudan, that was a direct making. Hillary Clinton calls herself the midwife of South Sudan because they made that so they can have access to the oil, right? And part of what they do is they make us fall into these power sharing agreements that are not within our interests. And one of the four main steps that we need to look out for when it comes to power sharing is they say secure a ceasefire, right? Have interim power sharing among armed forces. That's what happened in the Sudans, right? And then roll out a timetable for institutional reform that is based off of what it is the interest of the US, right? And then you bring in civil actors towards the end for elections, as opposed to what it is that Sudanese people have set up. Like, for example, the folks in Sudan set up the charter for a recreation of the Sudans, but that's not what is followed. What is followed is in the interest of colonialism and neocolonialism because we're following this pattern. And so the question now is like, what is the thing to do to undo this pattern? It requires uniting as Africans, and it requires struggling with what's happening with the Sudans, not as a humanitarian issue, but as an issue of imperialism. People are not hungry simply because there's no food provided. It comes from a history of our soil degradation. It comes from a history of these austerity measures that really makes it difficult to buy day-to-day items. It comes from a history of militarism, right? And if we understand that, then maybe this cycle and this timeline will look different decades from now. But that's it for now.
Thank you so much, Salome. That was amazing. It was beautiful how seeing the political economy of like Sudan be expanded out and making connections even back to our speaker Booker when talking about the African of labor reserves. Like if we do the study, it all gets connected. So thank you so much for that. All right, our next speaker is Akin Goffmet. Akin is based in Nigeria, is with the Amilcar Cabral Ideological School Movement, a Pan-African movement that is founded on the ideology premised on Black emancipation across the world. It's their firm creed that Africans and their continent would never be liberated with the existence of neocolonialism, that the liberation of Africans is tied with the struggle to uproot West imperialism with her debt trap of the IMF and the World Bank. All right, so I want to present Akin, and we're going to have Akin speak for about 12 minutes, just a couple minutes shorter than previous because we're trying to make space for interpretation. So we will be speaking shorter, but of course, we're going to continue adding links so that people can look into things further as well. All right, let's see if we have Akin still logged in.
Thank you so much, comrade. Comrade Julian, how are you? Hello, comrade.
Hello, Akin. Yes.
Hello, comrade.
Hi,
Yeah.
yes.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
It's okay. Thank you so much. Firstly, let me appreciate comrades for standing by with us for the struggle against the US puppet regime of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who have been trying all his possible best to repress the innocent Nigerians who are bold enough, who are courageous enough to stand up and resist neoliberal policies of the US creditor banks, IMF, World Bank. I'm happy to inform comrades in the house that our comrades who are incarcerated as a result of our protest march, which we staged on August 1st to 10th of August. Michael Lenny, Opalua, Mosio Sodiq, all of them, they have been freed. And the struggle continues. As we went out to march on the streets on October 1st, 39 of our comrades in Lagos State were arrested, but they have also been released. So we appreciate the international solidarity that comrades have been extending to us. I hope this kind of ideological solidarity will continue until when our continent is freed from imperialism. Now, Nigerian problems is not different from any other African countries' issues starting from when Nigeria is being penciled down for independence, pre-1960 independence. We have been battling with a lot of foreign imperialistic invasion in the country, most especially through the slave trades and all other means they use to cow the people of the most largest black nation in the whole world. In 1960, in 60s, there was a planned arrangement by the US, by the West, so to say, ably led by the US, to organize what they call Anglo-Pac defense, where the military from the West are going to be stationed and barracked in Nigeria. They said they are going to be training involving in the manpower development and in defense of the country. But the comrades stood vehemently against that Nigeria is a sovereign country. We just got the independence. We don't need any involvement of any external military whatsoever. So the plan was thwarted and the country moved forward. But I'm telling you the truth, ever since that time, though they may not be physically sighted in the country, but the weapons employed by them has always been on one anti-people policies or the other, most especially through their creditor banks, IMF, World Bank, who have strangulated the arts of the country through loans and other. And going to our experience in the 80s, when the economy was a little bit bearable, the cost of things were not that higher, and the country was manufacturing our own products. We have companies that are producing television, companies that are producing a lot of needs of Nigerians. But as time goes on, the military started taking over after one another. Buhari was there in 1983, December. He was hosted out. Babangida came in, who happened to be the clear puppet of the CIA. So he came for more than 7-8 years that he ruled the country. He ran the country to a mess, with huge total debt incurred, repression. There was no situation whereby people can freely come out and protest, or else they will be arrested. Some were unjustly killed, and we recorded a lot of numbers of dissident voices who came out and against the liberal policy of the IBB during that time. Nigeria is a country blessed with a lot of resources, both in human terms and in material wise. But the problem we are having is that most of all of them who have been succeeding after one another, they have been pro-US stooge boys. They collect the scripts from them, and they came to Nigeria for the implementation. And a good example of it is what IBB introduced in early 90s, which they call structural adjustment program, which is one of the cardinal agenda of the IMF, World Bank of it. So he came up with that the education, the government should reduce the cost, social infrastructures, social amenities. The government have to at least calculate the expenses as touching that. And he was trying to perpetuate himself for long into power. So during that period, he was trying to bring up two political parties, which was then NRC and the SDP. So the election was conducted June 12, 1993, and it was annual as well. And people came out. You know, the country has been known for a consistent resistance. So people came up, we mobilized people, and the struggle erupted during that time. So during those periods, starting from early 90s down to 1998, it has been always one struggle after the others. So in the advent of democracy in 1999, Obasanjo could not do something different from the past head of state. He was carrying out the agenda of the West to an extent that the education was commercialized. The commanding height of economy, which the country survived on, was privatized. Downsizing came up again, and people faced a lot of frustration during that time. So, and the resultant effect of all those things is exactly what we are experiencing now, because a nation that generates its own power by herself, that did a lot of things by herself, all those basic needs has been in the hands of the few selected light-fingered ruling capitalist elite class. So to understand that the poor cannot even feed themselves the way it's supposed to be. And I think all those trouble situations led us to the struggle that is ongoing in Nigeria. Before this man came up, the petrol is being sold at the rate of 186 naira. When he came up last year, May 29, 2023, the first statement he made was that the subsidy is gone. The subsidy is gone. And immediately after that program, the price of the petroleum commodity skyrocketed. 500 naira in some places, 600 naira in some places, and like that, we started mobilizing, discussing on how this kind of anti-people policy is going to be resisted. Now, let's now move to August 1st of this year. When all these things happened, we mobilized our people. The whole country was so tense to an extent that people, even people that have jobs, they have become beggars. People who are unemployed, they have become something else. So we mobilize the people on ideological basis that the only thing we need to do, the way we need to respond to all this neoliberal attack, is to mobilize ourselves collectively and find our opinion. So August 1st was declared as a day for total protest. We went to the streets. People were there in the midst of the press. The security people were there. But the second day, we saw another thing entirely, that the protests should not extend more than 1 or 2 days, because they know the implication of it. In 2012, Occupy Nigeria, in January, we spent nothing less than a week on the streets. Nobody goes to anywhere. We occupy all the major cities in Nigeria. And along the line, the matter was reversed in that 2012. So they know the implication of that. So they are now venturing into militarism to repress the innocent protesters. So that was when some of our comrades in Abuja, FCT, were arrested, and they were being charged for treason, that they are trying to topple the government and they are trying to cause the chaos for the government. Now,
Aken,
yeah,
I know you're reaching like an incredible part of like the developments. Can we get this to wrap up maybe in the next 2 minutes? Sorry, we're getting tight on time.
it's okay. Thank you so much. So where I'm driving at is that the situation here is so tense to an extent that people are living an hopeless life. No shelter for some of them, no food on their table. We have a lot of people that are unemployed. But the most annoying part of it is that the government, this US puppet leadership, ably represented by Tinubu, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, keep on borrowing money. In at least in 2015, the foreign loan the former president collected was 12.6 trillion naira. From 12.6 trillion naira to 97.3 trillion naira. So between December 2023 and March 2004, the debt that this government have incurred is up to 24.3 trillion naira. And you now ask them where all this loan is being expended on. Does it have any positive, meaningful impact on the life of the poor masses? Nothing of such. But the president keep on assuring people that everything is going to be all right. He's doing all this reform for the better future. Buying jets, buying yachts, and they continue living in affluence. And how people are going to keep calm in such kind of a situation. And that one has been informing the readiness and the decision of the masses of our people to continue agitating that there must be a system change. This kind of political system is highly corrupt. It pays the selected few and suffer the mass of the working people. That the government of this country must play themselves on the minimum wage. The legislative assignment must be on part-time basis. All the corrupt political office holder must be tried in the court and jailed them. And demands continue like that. And the local production for our needs have to start. I could remember in those days, Nigeria, we got television station before most of the Western European countries. We produce car by ourselves. All those things, the basic needs of life were being produced. But now, the country has become a dumping ground for the US. Fairly use cars, fairly use clothes, fairly use this, fairly use that. Hardly we could produce singular thing. Everything using in the country has been sent from America. Now, lastly, I'm charging all the comrades.
I'm gonna say we
charging
are
our
at
comrades.
time. If this could be like a closing remark, we are at time. I'm so sorry, I can. But we do have questions coming in for you as well in the Q&A section.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you so much for this kind of opportunity given to us in Nigeria to relate our experience and to also call for that continued solidarity, of which is going to assist us to liberate the country and to liberate the rest of Africa. Thank you so much. Amandla, I wish you. Thank you. Solidarity forever.
Thank you so much, Akin. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I appreciate the calls for continued solidarity. I do want to remind folks, continue to drop questions in the Q&A for all of our wonderful speakers so that they can elaborate a little bit more. Our last speaker is Enemeset Richardson. Enemeset is an organizer with the All-African People's Revolutionary Party and the president of the Thomas Sankara Center for Liberation and African Unity. She's a daughter of the Nigerian diaspora, born and raised in Ohlone Territory, California, and Turtle Island, the United States. In the past, she's lived in Senegal and Ghana, where she studied neocolonialism and connected with Pan-African organizers before moving to Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso to help co-found the Thomas Sankara Center. Thank you so much for joining us.
Greetings. Thank you so much for having me on. I tend to speak very quickly, so I'm going to try my best to slow down here. I'm honored to be on this program. You know, I've followed the Black Alliance for Peace's campaign to shut down AFRICOM for many years. I myself have organized for several years around this movement to close AFRICOM, to shut it down, and to kick the US military out of the African continent. With that being said, I think that this year's campaign to shut down AFRICOM needs to be different from all of the previous years of this campaign that have come before it, because this year is not the same as last year or the year before. Something historic has happened that needs to be acknowledged and that needs to fundamentally shift certain aspects of our organizing work. And that is the fact that for the first time in history, an African country has heeded our call as Pan-Africanists and taken the step to become the first African country to end its military agreement with the US Africa Command. And that country is Niger, which made this bold move earlier this year in March. And as of right now, actually as of August, actually more recently, it's been in waves, but I'll say mostly as of August, Niger has followed through and AFRICOM has completely evacuated the country. What then becomes our responsibility to an African country that has heeded our call? Because we have been saying shut down AFRICOM, we've been fighting for this for a long time, and we know that making a move like this is not something that happens without consequence. Niger now has a major target on its back. Its leaders, the government, the people, the state of Niger now have a target on their country because they have heeded the call of Africans around the world to take this bold move for Africa's sovereignty and liberation. I think that this has to become a major part of the shut down AFRICOM movement. Now the struggle has to, in part, revolve around defending Niger, which has stepped up and played this role. I would like to remind people that looking back at Kwame Nkrumah's handbook of revolutionary warfare, he divided Africa into 3 different zones. He talked about zones under enemy control. These are African countries that are firmly anchored in the neocolonial system. There are too many examples to cite, so I won't bother, but I think some of the previous panelists were able to explain a bit of what neocolonialism looks like. Kwame Nkrumah talked about contested zones. A contested zone is a country, an African state, where the regime is reactionary and neocolonial, but there is a mass struggle or organized movement working to overthrow that reactionary or neocolonial regime. So you could think, for example, of Guinea-Bissau in the early 1970s. The PIGC was waging an armed struggle against Portuguese colonial rule. It was a contested zone. Even Guinea-Bissau today, which unfortunately has a reactionary leader, but has an organized PIGC mass movement vying for power, that's a contested zone. If we look at Kwame Nkrumah's definition of a liberated zone, he talks about three things in particular. He's talking about zones that are promoting economic development, improving working conditions, and establishing complete freedom from dependence on foreign economic interests. The Alliance of Sahel state countries of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are stellar examples of liberated zones adapted to 21st century contexts and definitions. So, of course,
this is the interpreter asking to please read a little more slowly. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I do tend to speak quickly. I'll try to slow down. So should I repeat that, or is it okay?
Yes, please repeat. Thank you.
Okay, so to go back to Kwame Nkrumah's definitions, he talks about liberated zones as zones that are promoting economic development, improving working conditions, and establishing complete freedom from dependence on foreign economic interests. Hopefully, you were able to get that. If we look at the Alliance of Sahel state countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, these are stellar examples of liberated zones adapting, the definitions given in the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare to a 21st century context. So thinking dialectically, we know the world is always changing, so we can't look exactly 100% at how things were in the 1960s. We have to be able to bring things into a modern context and think about, what are the closest definitions relative to our time. But if we look at the three zones he lays out, the AES falls best into the category of liberated zones. So what do we have to do then to defend these zones? And I think that this is really the struggle of our time as Pan-Africanists, because defending what the zones that we have liberated is really the basis of our ability to move forward towards a unified African continent. Now, with that being said, these are zones that are liberated because the governments are aligned with and submissive to the interests of the people, but these are also countries that are under attack, brutally so. So if you look very recently, just in this past week and a half, the spokesperson here of the Burkina Faso government has talked about a conspiracy that was recently uncovered, attempting to destabilize the country of Burkina Faso, with actors coming from both within Burkina Faso, people who were involved, for example, in previous administrations, former ministers of Burkina Faso, even the former president Damiba, Paul-Henri Damiba, who was the previous leader who was overthrown by Traoré, as well as actors coming in from Côte d'Ivoire, and meetings that were hosted in Ghana, and meetings that were set to be hosted in Nigeria. The Alliance of Sahel States is under attack every day. Comrades in the Thomas Sankara Center went to Bamako, Mali, to celebrate the first year anniversary of the founding of the Alliance of Sahel States a couple weeks ago. And they witnessed in front of their eyes a terrorist attack on Bamako, the capital city of Mali. Now, if you talk to anybody any normal, like regular person, I'm not saying that you're not going to encounter any opposition, but if you talk to any regular working class person in my neighborhood, in the neighborhood of the Thomas Sankara Center, in the places that I visited in Niamey, Niger, in Bamako, Mali, the overwhelming majority of people will tell you that France, the United States, and nowadays they will also say Ukraine are directly responsible for supporting, propping up, and funding these terrorist paramilitary organizations. I like to call them death squads. The Ukraine case, I think, is especially important to highlight. The United Nations 79th General Assembly just occurred, and all three countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, evoked once again at the level of the United Nations that two Ukrainian officials have publicly professed to supporting terrorism in the Sahel. Mali, 2 years ago, came before the United Nations. At this time, Mali was alone. Burkina Faso and Niger had not yet had revolutions, to publicly proclaim that France was supporting terrorist organizations that it was claiming to fight against. There has been several instances of evidence uncovered suggesting that the United States has also seemingly supported these terrorist organizations that they have claimed to fight against. One example of this is the evidence of a US rather, mercenary who left behind certain documents and belongings in Kidal, a stronghold of the terrorist organizations that was liberated recently by Mali. So this is a region that is under attack. And speaking of AFRICOM, I think it needs to be very clear that, you know, the United States is not planning to leave West Africa. It's not like, you know, they were kicked out of Niger and they're like, okay, we'll let this slide. Rather, they are using neighboring states in West Africa to basically surround the AES countries with institutions and military, either military bases or sort of military structures to threaten the AES. One example of this is in Côte d'Ivoire, where there is a rumored deal between the United States and the country to create a new military base in Odiané, which is a village that is on the border of Mali. So it's on the Ivorian side of the border, right near Mali, not far from Burkina Faso either, in the north of the country. And this rumor was confirmed by the French media outlet Le Monde, and another major Western news source, I believe it was AFP, I hope I'm getting that correctly, also said that they received inside confirmation around this base. Benin is another country that has been accused of working with the United States and France to develop institutions geared towards destabilizing the alliance of Sahel states. The country was accused by Niger of allegedly working to create a new drone base with France. They have denied this, but this is an accusation that was made from within the AES with the goal of destabilizing and threatening Niger and the other AES countries. Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso, has spoken about think tanks that exist in Côte d'Ivoire and in Benin that are geared towards, again, working to destabilize the alliance of Sahel states. So these are countries that are under attack. And I also should mention that there are currently EU sanctions on Niger and Mali, and the United States is sanctioning Mali as well. Burkina Faso doesn't have these same sanctions. However, Burkina Faso has experienced routine coup attempts that have failed due to the vigilance and the mass organization of the Citizens Night Watch, which is a grassroots community-based unit, I guess, to protect and defend the revolution, to serve as its eyes and ears. They exist in every single major city and village across the country. They are out every single night. They are out right now, or it's probably a little early, but they're about to come out across every single roundabout in the city of Ouagadougou. So it is because of this mass organization and the role that the people are playing that these destabilization attempts haven't succeeded. I should mention that many people have probably remarked that there is an attack on certain news outlets that are spreading information regarding the Alliance of Sahel States in English, namely African Stream. I think most people on this webinar will probably be familiar with African Stream. There's another outlet that people may not be as familiar with. It's called Afrique Media. It is based out of Cameroon.
We are at time. If you could give your closing remarks.
Okay, I guess I'm going to skip over this part. I'll tell people to pay attention to both of these outlets through Telegram. I want people to know that they should be supporting the Alliance of Sahel States. We should in particularly be defending Niger within the context of anything calling for AFRICOM to be shut down. Niger has a solidarity fund, so you can visit fssp.ne. Once again, that's fssp.ne to contribute to Niger's solidarity fund, which is money that is going to Niger state and the struggle against terrorism, these death squads that once again are allegedly Western backed. And I should also mention the Thomas Sankara Center is working really hard right now to bring revolutionary Pan-African books, reading materials into Niger. So you can check out our fundraiser to help bring Pan-African books and resources into Niamey. Those links can be found on our Instagram, which is Burkina Books. I'll conclude with that.
Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry that we were running short on time. Everything you were saying was hitting home and incredibly important during these times. So I hope people were taking notes, and we did drop a link to the Africa Watch Bulletin number 53 that Inem did give some more information about everything that she was discussing today in a bit more depth. So please read that. And we are going to open up to Q&A. If you haven't dropped your questions yet, please do so. We've been collecting what's there so far. But for folks that are not going to be able to stay to the end, I do want to draw people's attention to the call of action for this month. Obviously, this is the kickoff launch event so that people could hear a little bit more about the work that's happening throughout the diaspora to shut down AFRICOM. But we do also want to make sure that folks know that there are next steps that we're asking them to engage in, which is one, endorsing the month of action. Two, you can download a guide for doing a teach-in. And then 3, action. There are guides that the Black Alliance for Peace has made available for banner drops, as well as like other direct action that we would like folks to take. Please use the hashtag. Oh, I see Erica Kane's dropped the We Are Africa Stream hashtag, but as well, we would like folks to use US out of Africa and shut down AFRICOM. And of course, share information about the campaign to get the US out of Africa overall so that we can get more people to be engaged in this global struggle. Again, we do have a Q&A session that's about to start. And our first question pulled from the chat is actually for Salome. The question is, do you have any thoughts on how different things might have been for Sudan had Nasser lived, at least from the Egyptian role in the political process?
Yeah, being a student of history, I don't want to make assumptions as to what would have happened because there's so many elements that are at play. But had Nasser lived, Sudan's trajectory, especially in relationship to Egypt, I think it would have taken a different path. So Nasser's Free Officers movement, it really inspired the 1969 coup led by Numeri, who initially embraced a secular socialist agenda, which aligned with Nasser's vision, and also supported Southern autonomy in the Sudans. But Numeri quickly turned against a lot of these ideas and dismissed proposed shifts within the country, and even the fact that there were attempted coups by the Communist Party of Sudan and other more people-centered groups shows a dissatisfaction with his rule. And even this it led to the trajectory of what we see now with the IMF. So in 1979, when Chevron confirmed oil in the Upper Nile and South Kordofan, Numeri's regime reached an agreement with the IMF and the World Bank to basically develop these economic recovery programs. And these programs are neoliberal policies that included privatization, trade liberalism, cuts on social services, a lot of what we've seen leading to even the revolts in 2018. And it also led to a lot of unrest that led to shifts in the country and a lot like more conflict that was taking place. So perhaps if Nasir was still able to be there, perhaps his influence could have fostered more, foster Numeri to stay in line with a more socialist agenda, an agenda that involved all of Sudan, similar to the vision of John Garange, the vision of a new Sudan, where all Sudanese people could have full control of their land, resources, and themselves, unlike what we have today. And so this really created the foundation for what we see today in terms of Sudan's relationship with the IMF and World Bank.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Salome. Question 2 is directed at Akin. Is there work to not just get the military out, but foreign companies like Shell, Chevron, Exxon, etc., out of Nigeria? I think you're still muted.
The struggle against neoliberal policy of Nigerian US puppet, when we look at it from early 90s, when people of the Niger Delta, who happen to be the owner of the lands where oil is being exploited, people during that time, a lot of declaration. I could still remember Kayama Declaration that was presented to the government during that time. And Ogoni people, movement for the survivor, led by Kesaruwiwa, that the Shell, Chevron, all these multinational oil producing companies, they were just in the region exploring oil, nothing to show for it. The environment is being polluted, no good water to drink, no good healthcare system for the people of that region. Education is in shambles. There was no security. People are living in palpable fear. And whenever they come up to ask certain questions, they faced military repression. And ever since that time, Serarua was killed openly, and the Ogoni 9, they were killed. And another set of generation came on board to be asking questions. Even the fine that was placed on Shell, they should pay certain amount of money to clean up the polluted and to build certain social infrastructural facilities. The effect of all these things has not been felt by the people of the Niger Delta. So it's another phase of the struggle in Nigeria to make sure that all these vampires, all these foreign imperialist Jews leave Nigeria and allow Nigerians to decide what should be their fate. So presently now, the country can boast of nothing less than 3-4 refineries, national refineries, but nothing is working there. The one in Warri is no more working. In Kaduna, nothing. In Port Harcourt, nothing. But after the oil extraction, the crude of it is being transported to US for refining and brought back to Nigeria again, selling it at a exorbitant price that the poor masses would not be able to afford. So it has been part of our demand that all these multinational companies have to deal with us with a mutual respect, have to make us to have final says on our resources, or they leave completely, so that Nigerians can benefit from their own natural and mineral resources. So the agitation is still included in our demands that all the commanding heights of nation economy have to be subjected under the control of the management of the working people in Nigeria, which is going to default of any foreign intervention or any imperialist dictate on how our product is going to be extracted, refined, and be used by Nigerians. So we are saying it completely, that enough is enough. The US have done a lot of worse things in this country through some organizations, through some multilateral companies, to come and rip off of our endowment, our commonwealth. So we continue agitating on all these things, and we want the comrades to join us in this agitation, that until a country is independent, until when they were able to produce and have final say in what belongs to them, not in this kind of situation, whereby we are just hearing it that we have this, we have that, and it's not useful. We can't decide on what to do about it. Hardly presently now, the total number of oil being produced in Nigeria, the government does not even know it. If they give you one figure today, that is 12 million barrels per day, it is far from the truth. So mechanism and methods to ascertain the total number of the oil we have been produced each day is not there. So it gives room for the foreign investor to come, thief the resources, and go away with it. At the end of the day, we will still go there and buy it and transport it back to Nigeria at a exorbitant rate. So it is a.
We actually have a related question.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Our final question is actually also for you. Sorry, we do have to close the Q&A only because we are already over time for the event. So we do want to ask this last question. If we could limit the response to a maximum of 2 minutes. It's very related to what you were just talking about, but Akin, it looks like Tinubu is instituting the same IMF, World Bank policies of the late 1980s. This came from the chat, and they were wanting to know your perspective. Do you think that that's accurate?
Hello, comrade. Can I hear you again?
Yes. It looks like Tinubu is instituting the same IMF World Bank policies of the late 1980s. Would you say that that's a correct assessment? And again, we're trying to limit responses to 2 minutes because we are over time.
Thank you so much, comrade. It is true. When you look at the program turning out by this present administration, we agree with that assertion that Tinubu is one of the most closest puppets to the US imperialist. Firstly, look at our local currency here, which is Naira. The first thing he could do when he assumed the office, the first demand given to him is to devaluate the Naira. We have had it where the dollar is stabilized with Naira. Before we have it $1 to 140, 150, like that. But when he came, the story changed. So we are exchanging Naira with dollar presently now at the rate of 1,005 and 1,600 Naira. So to an extent that looking at the level of Naira in the country with our battered economy presently now, which is engulfed with high inflation and all that, Ghanaian cedis, French currency, spending in our, at least in a neighboring country like Benin Republic, Togo, is now more valuable than Nigerian currency as at now, as a result of that devaluation of our currency. And it's really making things to at least getting bad every day. You buy something yesterday at the rate of 1 Naira, you get there today, you will get it at the rate of 2 Naira, 3 Naira, 4 Naira, 5 Naira. And looking at the purchasing power of the people has reduced infinitesimally. Just of recent, when the Labour came up with an agenda for the increase and the implementation of a minimum wage. The minimum wage currently in Nigeria now is being penciled down at the rate of 70,000 Naira, which is not up to $100. So that is the situation for now in the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that insight. So this is the end of our program. We want to thank all of our amazing panelists for taking the time out to be able to join us to share your insights on the importance of this campaign. And also just taking the time away from like your continued engagement and local struggles like on the continent and for folks here. So I'm very, very grateful to be able to even share the space with you all and the amazing work you're doing. Thank you all so much. Thank you for everyone that also was able to join to be able to soak in some of this information. We do want to invite everyone to join the US Out of Africa Network because there is a lot of work to do, as you've heard today. So we should be getting a link to that in the chat. And we also, again, I know we spoke to this already, but we do want to emphasize getting organizations to endorse this month of action, as well as, again, taking action yourselves, whether that's in the form of doing teach-ins to inform others, but also taking direct action to organize protests, strikes, banner drops, and popularizing this idea out there as well. So whether that's social media, again, doing face-to-face teach-ins, whatever we can to popularize getting the US out of Africa and a complete end to the US Africa Command, which is obviously a very brutal project across the continent, and one of our first demands to begin our fight to liberate Africa. Again, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to all the interpreters. I know we kept you busy, and thank you for the continued reminders to slow it down for folks. Okay, we have links here in the chat now made available. There's the link to endorse and the link for US Out of Africa work, as well as the US Out of Africa team for folks to join the team directly with that application. Thank you all so much.
Comrades, solidarity forever.
Thank you, Akeem.
Ready.
No
Thank
compromise,
you.
no retreat.
No compromise,
No retreat, no surrender. Thank you so much. The struggle continue.